Hello, friends. It is Thursday, May 19th. This is Spingola Speaks, and this is Deanna Spingola. My guest today is J. Bruce Campbell, a Chicago native. His latest article is called Behind the Holocaust: What Was Hitler's Unforgivable Sin? And that is linked on the radio schedule page. Now, in Bruce's subtitle, he wrote, and I quote, "Hitler resisted Judaism. When you're a little kid in school or at the movies, resisting Judaism can be made to seem a very wicked thing. As an adult, you can be made to think that to resist Judaism is the very worst, the most dangerous thing. When you see what has happened to people who have resisted Judaism, well, you certainly don't want that to happen to you." Unquote. Welcome to the program, Bruce.
Well, thanks, Deanna.
It's nice to have you here.
Great to be here.
All righty. Let's talk about when we think of the very, very worst person in the history of the world, everyone automatically thinks of Hitler.
Well, he's the boogeyman, yeah.
Yep. Instead of Stalin, who killed probably 60 million people, instead of all the other warmongers who have led to the deaths of, there were 50 million in World War II, but he is, as you say, the boogeyman. So we do have to go to a break in about 2 minutes, but let's tell me about your article, why you decided to write it, and tell me why you wrote it.
Well, I've been a Holocaust revisionist. I've been a student of Holocaust revisionism for a couple of decades, I guess. But I never really thought too much what was behind it other than just, Jewish control of our minds. But now it's occurred to me that it's really connected to our central banking system. We can go into it later, but what Hitler did was defy the private central bankers of America and Europe when he had to come up with some kind of monetary system, since Germany had been bankrupted by America after World War I and suffered the terrible hyperinflation and starvation. So this is what he did. He rescued Germany with debt-free currency, and immediately war was declared by the Jews against Germany, economic warfare in 1933 when he came to power. So I think they had to figure out from the very beginning how to discredit this notion of debt-free currency and prevent it from ever happening anyplace ever again. And that's where the Holocaust comes in.
Now, yesterday, Veronica Clark was on the program, and we talked quite a bit about the economic system and the 4-year plan that he had developed, and how much it did for the country. And so, anyway, go ahead and continue. You wrote this article, and you start out by saying he was a dangerous character in history due to his resistance against Judaism. And right before we went to the break, you were talking about the economic warfare that started in the spring of 1933.
Yeah, he and Roosevelt came to power at the exact same time in January 33, in the depths of the Great Depression. But, of course, Germany was also suffering from the Versailles Treaty, conditions of reparations payments, which had bankrupted the country 10 years earlier. And people had starved to death, and including Hitler. I mean, they all were in terrible condition, and there seemed to be no hope. Now, my point is that today, America is facing possibly a similar situation. I mean, we have the disaster in the Gulf of Mexico still to deal with. We have now the Japanese disaster. We don't know how bad that's going to be. And we have these ruinous wars against Islam. But really the most terrifying possibility is a currency collapse. similar to what happened in Germany and Greece before that, and Yugoslavia and Zimbabwe, because there's nothing backing up our money, and it could collapse. Now, I'm not saying it's going to collapse, and I believe that if we follow the Hitler economic program, we can prevent this collapse. I've got a couple of links in my article, one about the Holocaust and one about sound money, or fiat currency, not backed by gold or silver. And the two people I quote are Bill Still and Ellen Brown. They're both monetary geniuses, but and they kind of allude to the Hitler's success in rescuing Germany, but because of the Holocaust, they don't really want to explore that. They'll talk about Rome, and they talk about Abraham Lincoln's greenbacks, and I think they talk about Kennedy's attempt with the U.S. notes in 1963, a few months before he was killed. But they're not willing to talk about what Hitler did, which was much more dramatic and fantastic in its ability to rescue Germany from total destitution and starvation in 1933 to a point where in 1935, 2 years later, German workers were all employed. They've gone from 50% unemployment, which is unheard of, to full employment within 2 years, and the workers were taking paid holiday cruises and all kinds of wonderful benefits because of the issuance of debt-free currency, which we can do too.
Sure. But of course, the minute you do mention the name Adolf Hitler, that kind of makes people feel negative about anything that he possibly could have done.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing. That's why I wrote that piece, because I see now that that's the real purpose of the Holocaust. Oh, yeah, it makes them a lot of money, and it grinds our noses into some kind of Gentile guilt. But I see now that the real purpose of the Holocaust is to prevent us from ever looking at what Hitler did for Germany and the economic miracle that rescued Germany. Hitler gave a talk when he declared war against the United States a few days after Pearl Harbor. And he said that, Roosevelt and I came to power at the same time in the same conditions. But within 2 years, Germany was productive and a world leader in commerce. But where is America today, December 1941? It's no better off. It's mired in depression still, with starvation conditions in America. Mighty America. How could this be?
Within just a few weeks of him coming to power, on February 1st, 1933, in Berlin, Adolf Hitler said, and I quote, "The national government will regard as its first and foremost duty to revive in the nation the spirit of unity and cooperation. It will preserve and defend those basic principles on which our nation has been built. It regards Christianity as the foundation of our national morality and the family as the basis of national life," unquote. And then he also compared communism to what he was trying to do, and he said, "Never forget that the rulers of present-day Russia are common blood-stained criminals. They are the scum of humanity which, favored by circumstances, overran a great state in a tragic hour, slaughtered and wiped out thousands of her leading intelligentsia in a wild bloodlust, and now for almost 10 years have been carrying on the most cruel and tyrannical regime of all time," unquote. And so, the purpose of any war, the purpose of any economic destruction, is to really take tyrannical control and communize a country, which is what he was attempting to prevent in Germany.
Well, that's true. It was unintended consequences, I'd say, by the German army in 1917 to send Lenin from Zurich with about 150 of his Bolsheviks to St. Petersburg to meet with Leon Trotsky, whom was sent by Woodrow Wilson from New York with about 350 of his Bolsheviks to meet with Lenin in St. Petersburg and to take over the Kerensky government, which had kind of overthrown the royal family. And the German army in 1917 sent Lenin in there, not knowing that they would be rewarded a few years later by Lenin sending communist revolutionaries back into Germany to communize Germany. And they very nearly succeeded. And it was only because of the guys like the Freikorps and other German patriots who managed to prevent that. But it was a bloody revolution, and always was a possibility. And Hitler was up against those guys.
I'd not heard that the German army had anything to do with Lenin. How did that come about?
Well, the purpose was, Germany was fighting World War I on two fronts, on the Russian front, the Eastern Front, and on the Western Front against the Allies. America hadn't joined the war yet. It was preparing to. But the German army made a deal with Lenin, saying, look, we'll help you get in there, we'll even give you some money, and you take over that revolution. To Lenin.
Who in the German army?
Well, I can't remember right now the names, but it was actually done by the father of a friend of mine, Heinz Weikart. If you read a piece that he did, it's online, called Under Two Flags. Heinz's father was a famous journalist with the Frankfurter Zeitung and some other papers, and the German army actually had Heinz's father make the contact with Lenin in Zurich. So, yeah, it's quite...
Because I know that after the 1905 revolution that Lenin fled to Switzerland,
yes.
And Trotsky went to the United States, and then the Russian authorities sent Stalin to Siberia. Okay.
Yeah, and, so Lenin and Trotsky met up in St. Petersburg in May, I think, of 1917, and then they conspired and they took over the Kerensky revolution in October.
Now, Kerensky was kind of a front man, I think, for the bankers.
Oh, yeah. He was Jewish, too, and he wound up at Stanford University as an instructor there for years.
Interesting.
But it was a joint effort. Now, here's the interesting thing, because Woodrow Wilson, president, sent Trotsky and his Bolsheviks on a ship to St. Petersburg, but en route they stopped in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and the Canadians arrested them all and put them in jail because they realized, they knew the score. They knew that if the communists, the Bolsheviks, took over the Russian government, they would cut a deal with Germany. That was the deal. And they would take Russia out of the war, and they would free up all these German soldiers on the Eastern Front, let them go over to the Western Front and fight the Allies, including the Americans. So this was done a week after Wilson declared war on Germany. This unbelievable textbook case of treason, which is, giving aid and comfort to an enemy in time of war. Well, we actually
hold that thought, Bruce. We do have to take a 3-minute